And good morning, everybody. We're live. That countdown timer is a relatively new thing I started here a few weeks ago, and that's awesome. It makes it much more nice for that transition to the chat. So good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name is Bryan Armentrout with Culture Advisory Group, and this is the Food Safety Chat Live. And if you're new, welcome. Pull up a chair. Every Friday at this time at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, we live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. And what we do here is we have a conversation about cutting edge topics in food safety. And what you'll notice here, number one, not a presentation. This is meant to be an active discussion. And I love that the conversation here has already started even before we opened up the live stream here. So this is great. So it's awesome seeing all these wonderful people here. File on in. Let us know where you're at in the world. So the best part of this is you don't have to listen to me talk for an hour. I get to bring an amazing guest on. And this week, I'm really, really happy to be bringing on Shahram Ajamian, I think I got that correct, who is the Senior Director of Global Quality and Food Safety Governance at an amazing company, McCormick. Shahram, how you doing today?
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening to all your viewers. And happy to be here. Appreciate your invitation and excited to have a great conversation with you today and with the audience.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm very, very proud of, Shahram, that we've done here with the chat, is one of the things that we strive to do in what we do is it doesn't necessarily matter what company we work for. We're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to make food better. We're all trying to protect the public. We all eat food too. And as part of that, the consumers don't necessarily care. If there's a food safety issue in the spice industry, consumers view it as an issue in all spices. And as a result, your company can suffer from that even if you have the best systems in place. So from a food safety standpoint, the more we're able to share with each other, the better off we're all going to be. And to your point here, oh my goodness, yeah, we have Mumbai. There's a gentleman here in Mumbai. Thank you, gosh. Middle of the night for you. Tracy Fink is here. That's really awesome. Jay, thank you for joining us. Of course, my partners in crime at Culture Advisory Group are joining us as well. Good to see those guys. And of course, one of the things that you'll notice here, if during our presentation today, we got, oh my God, a ton of material to go through here today, is throw your comments in the chat. A lot of times people will answer each other's questions, which is super cool. But also as we're talking, we'll be paying attention to the comments as well. And if you're saying something that integrates in with what we're talking about, we'll work that into the conversation. So please, everybody, let us know what you're doing. So with that, one of the traditions we have here on the chat is everyone join us, Shahram and I, for a drink of your favorite beverage. You got to show that mug. Yeah, look at that.
For the viewers, for your audience. So I live in Atlanta, Georgia. So I have and we talked about bold leadership. So I thought it's good to see Braves.
There you go.
Go Braves. So.
Cheers, everyone. I think that's a legal requirement in Georgia that you have to show mugs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Penalize you if you don't.
We've avoided the lawsuit, so that's good. So one of the other things we do here on the chat is I get to torture you and everyone on the chat with the dad joke of the week. Are you ready, sir?
I am. What is it?
All right, everybody. Shahram, where do Santa and his elves keep all their money?
So let me guess. North Pole Western Union? Maybe?
That's a good guess. It's a good guess.
Union? Yeah.
Also another good guess, but actually a little different. They keep their money in the snowbank.
That's funny.
In the snowbank. Oh, I don't know why I enjoy that so much, but I do. So we got to know each other a little bit, and I'll pull this up here and I'll put the link in here at the end as well. You wrote a fantastic article in Food Safety Tech, which I really enjoyed. We reached out to you and said, oh my God, you have to share this and really get into a little more detail about what you were talking about here. And let me get that pulled up here right now, because the quote here at the beginning, I think, was really good. And you did a really good job of expressing your view around this and how you're personally looking at this. And it's a little bit small here, but I wanted to read what's highlighted here to everybody. Is the food industry is at a turning point. It is time to move past fragmented assessments and toward a harmonized risk model that combines science, data, governance, and human behavior. Before doing this, we can strengthen resilience, protect public health. Oh, by doing this, sorry. We can strengthen resilience, protect public health, and build the trust on which our food system depends. Fantastic. You packed a ton of really important topics within just that little paragraph right there. So we'll dive into that a little bit more. But before we do, I wanted to also give everybody a little bit of context because your job sounds absolutely huge. What is it that you do in your role?
Sure. So, as you said, I work for a great company, McCormick and Company. And so I work in the Center of Excellence, the Global Center of Excellence for Food Safety, Quality, and Regulatory. And I lead the quality governance team. My team is responsible for designing and deploying the quality management system, quality culture, progressive quality, and supplier quality COE. So we work a lot on the risk management and on the performance metrics when it comes to food safety and quality. So it's very interesting and exciting to work for a company like McCormick. It's been in business for around 135 years. They have principles like the taste you trust, where we really focus our activities around that, and it's been a great journey. I've been working there for 12 years.
Nice. Well, and then that's, I mean, really, Shahram, that's one of the major challenges of what we do. Because if we're doing a really excellent job at what we do, nobody notices because things just appear to move along well, and food safety just happens. But the fact that, McCormick is never in the news, right? You guys do an excellent job of protecting the public. And you're in an extremely sensitive industry because spices and ingredients and all the things that you guys do go into everything. The pepper that sits on my counter goes into everything that I cook. The salt, everything is there. And I remember when FSMA first came out and Forest Supplier Verification just came out, and people were talking about your industry and just the incredibly complex nature of managing that. Just for example, for our guest here from India in the chat, oregano, just that fact of moving that oregano from those individual producers, those small farms, and getting that through that entire distribution network to us, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's very complex, as you said. It's a very complex supply chain system, but also we work hard on protecting the customers and consumers, and have done it for many years. And we're very proud on where we are. Food safety is something that it really takes the whole organization adoption in order to get to the high level. But protecting the trust also is very important because trust comes for through the years, and then it could be lost suddenly. So we work very hard on risk management and protecting this trust. And I welcome our conversation today to talk about the risk management in general and proactivity that we need to show. I do want to talk a little bit about our conversation today, because I really appreciate having these forums and having these conversations. I think something that we do less in food industry is to have these, talks and then challenging really each other. We talk about bold leadership. And I think it's important for us to challenge our thought process, challenge some of the things that we have done for many years, and see if that works for the future. So what I share today is really my personal opinion, and I'm really interested to go a little bit beyond the normal boundaries that we have and talk about some of the challenges. The article that you showed was one example of that. So excited to talk about that, but I did want to recognize this forum and the value that it brings, and I think it's great to have that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, because one of the challenges, and this is the hardest part I had when I was running quality at companies, is if I had good programs and good systems within my company, they were generally isolated within there. I may be able to go to a conference and give a vague presentation or give people a general idea. But if I had things that moved food safety forward very well, it was hard to communicate that. Conversely, I couldn't come and knock on your door at McCormick and say, "Hi, I'm Bryan Armentrout. Can I come in and learn what you're doing?" No, it doesn't work that way. Which is unfortunate because just meeting people at conferences and sharing a little bit of information that way is not enough. And we need to learn each other and share those perspectives. And from that standpoint, from your background, I think you bring some really good information from that because you also bring a fresh perspective with your background. I worked in medical device for a couple of years before I worked in food, but you worked in automotive, didn't you?
That's right. That's right. So I actually started my journey in automotive industry. So I studied industrial engineering. So by degree, I'm an industrial engineer. And later on, I studied quality assurance in my master. But, I started my journey in automotive industry. And, I worked through my years in automotive industry. I worked with a car manufacturer called Renault. That is one of the top three, car manufacturer in Europe. And, I learned a lot in the auto industry. I really understood quality from the lens of auto industry. Because if you think about the auto industry and, Renault, and later on they created in 1999, I believe they created a joint alliance with Nissan. Their system is inspired by the total production system. And if you look at the total production system, the base of that is essentially coming from lean manufacturing, what was called later in the Western side of the world, lean manufacturing. And, they had a lot of focus on waste management, what they used to call Muda. They had a lot of focus on Kaizen, continuous improvement. And, those are very critical concepts that I learned earlier. And then later on, I got, into the more advanced, after lean manufacturing, more advanced, methodologies like Six Sigma, and then combination of that with lean, which is Lean Six Sigma. And, it was really eye-opening to work on these and to see these. And then when I came to food industry, even up to now, I have this comparison that, what were we doing there and what are we doing here? And I don't think that we are doing fundamentally something different. And I mean, maybe the specificity of the problems that we were solving in these industries are different, but the foundation of all of them is asking the same question. And I would say that there were two things that I learned in auto industry that I don't see in food industry that much. And I think that we have to work more on that. One was around design and the focus and the attention to the design. So they, in auto industry, they had a really huge amount of attention to the design and to the system thinking, essentially. And, what I have seen in food industry is a lot of times design is not that robust, whether you're talking about design of the product or whether you're talking about the design of equipment or whether you're talking about the design of the, facility. The design phase is not very methodically, reviewed. And I think that's a big opportunity in the food industry. The second thing is overall auto industry is very heavily focused on reducing variations. And essentially variations is seen as something bad, something evil, right? So if you think about food industry, food is diverse by nature. We have a lot of variability in food, and that is recognized, and that's okay. But then our processes shouldn't be that variable. The process needs to take the variability essentially out of the product that it's producing and then create a stability, which is what we talk about today more about food safety and the perspective around that. And And those two are the key differences that I see that I think we need to talk further and we need to develop further when it comes to food industry. But it has given working in auto industry. It has given me a lot of perspective, and I advocate for that. That people that come to the food industry may need to get exposure to other industries as well. We also, in our conferences, in these forums, need to bring people from other industries, because benchmark doesn't come only from food industry. We need to get the benchmark from other industries as well. So, so that's just a little bit of background about myself, what I've done, and we can now dive more into these topics.
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of points I want to elaborate on a little bit as well is, definitely variability in the food industry is very difficult. If you're manufacturing a car, number one, extremely complex, thousands of parts within that vehicle with just a myriad of suppliers who are bringing those parts in to create that final product. And the design and the engineering associated with that is amazing. So we're not the only ones who have to deal with variability. A lot of our variability, so my background is mainly in the dairy industry. Just a variability in the milk coming into the plants. You would have a very different milk in the spring versus the fall. Even regionality and variances with that would cause challenges. But to your point, which I 100% agree with, is once you understand that variability, the actual manufacturing process of receiving, processing, packaging, and shipping, that needs to then be controlled with that in mind. I think you're 100% spot on with design control. And really, this is kind of an ISO term that describes how new products are developed and then brought to market. The auto industry has it correct. We have it backwards. What will happen in the food industry is the salespeople will go to the retailers, or they'll go to Expo West or whatever food show they go to, and they'll start talking with the end users, and they'll say, okay, well, we want some new products from you guys. Okay, good. And then the retailer will say, well, okay, we do our shelf resets at September and whatever, so we need to have your new products ready by then. So then the companies, in my experience, will then reverse the design process to meet that deadline. And a lot of times that will then create incredible stress within the system, because the due diligence can't take place, the supply reviews have to be rushed, the R&D work has to be accelerated, market trials, hopefully this product people like, and it almost becomes guesswork. If you're manufacturing a car, you can't guess. you have to make sure that thing is correct.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the main feature of a car is to be safe. And at the end of the day, the main feature of the food is to be safe as well. So having a robust system for the design doesn't mean that you have to always sacrifice agility. Agility becomes a concept, especially in this era and in this market that we operate, that is critical. And you talk to anyone that is in food industry, they tell you that we need to be more flexible, we need to be more agile, we need to cut the design timeline shorter so that the customer get the product sooner, and that's all fine. I think we can still achieve without necessarily sacrificing agility.
Yes.
To a more robust design system, so that it has the controls in place, so that it has the risk-based, decisions at that level already in place. We all just need to collaborate, create a system, and then train people on that to be able to do that. So, so I think it really deserves a lot of attention, and the concept that we should talk about quality by design. I think it's something that needs to be developed. We just haven't developed that in food industry. I mean, the concepts of hygienic design, the concept of quality by design is just especially for a smaller manufacturer, is news, right? Yeah. So those things need to be standardized further, needs to be communicated further, needs to be adopted more in order to provide better consistency.
Absolutely, yeah. So Noreen summarized it well, and this is kind of what I was thinking as well. Is these things are not mutually exclusive. One of the things I would preach in companies is having a good, effective design control process means you bring products to market faster, because people understand what the priorities are, they understand what work that needs to get done, and everyone moves in one direction to get those activities completed. The other big piece of this, and this is inferred in what you're talking about as well, is that there's only limited bandwidth within a company to do these activities. Even if let's say I'm working in R&D and I'm working 80 hours a week in R&D, that's still 80 hours. There's a limit no matter what. And once you exceed that limit, that's when things really start falling apart. So we have, what's nice about the chat here as well, Shahram, is we have backgrounds here with different people. So Cortland, who's a regular on the chat, runs a lab, and he has an extensive background in this as well. So we're getting kind of these cross-pollinations as well. One of the things that we track really closely in the food industry is kind of a high-level metric of how well we're doing our recalls. And there was a recent story I saw, I think it was Food Safety Tech as well, that they've done an evaluation of the last period, I think it was the last quarter of recalls, and they're up again. And there's more recalls, and there's more volume up as well. So I wanted to talk with you about that and ask you then, where do you think, in your perspective, based upon what we're talking about here today, Shahram, what do you think the problem is here? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, it's actually a very good question. I posted something on LinkedIn earlier this week around that. So if you look at our statistics today, we are almost toward the end of the year in 2025 versus 2024. FDA recall just in the United States have gone up, and that the other aspect of that is somewhere around 3,000 Americans die. I'm reading from an article that I read last night also. 3,000 Americans die of foodborne diseases each year. And then you have around 130,000 Americans hospitalized. Yeah. And we haven't been able to reduce this number. But I think the question that we need to ask is not about the reduction or having an increase in the number. I think we need to change the thought process and ask a different question. And the different question is, why do we have repeat failures? Because if you look at the cause of these failures, pretty much all of them comes back to the top categories have not changed. The top categories still is undeclared allergen. The top categories is still is pathogen contamination. The top category is still foreign material. So we haven't been able to reduce the number because we haven't been able to remove the cause. And one of the reasons of that is because we are not going to the actual causes of these problems. We do the analysis sometimes, but we do the correction without doing the corrective and preventive action. We remove the symptom and we do some sort of symptom analysis versus doing the cause analysis. Yes. If you look at many of these issues, sometimes the foundational issue comes back to the management commitment, to the resource management, and comes back to issues like even bad design, that people cannot succeed in beating those bad designs. Right. But then if you look at the causes and if you look at the investigations, in some cases we don't even get to that level to see the investigations. But if you look at those investigations, it comes back to employees. Did not follow the procedure or to these symptoms, not really the cause. Edward Deming, talking about auto industry, I'm a big fan of Edward Deming. And Edward Deming has a sentence that has resonated with me a lot. It says, quality begins with systems, not workers. Just think about it. Quality begins with systems, not workers. So if you think about the issues, you really, every time that an issue happens, you really need to think about what in the system failed that caused the issue. Instead of saying that employee did not follow the procedure. In fact, every time that we say employee did not follow the procedure, it's really a symptom or indicator that essentially is showing we are not doing the root cause properly. So one reason that we are not trying, we cannot really eliminate the causes or eradicate, the issues is because we are not doing the proper root cause analysis. That's only one reason that I would like to start with. Yes. I think we need to go deeper. We need to understand why employee did not follow the process. Because employee had a lot of things to do at the same time, because we did not have enough number of employee over there, because we did not put the right technology, right automation over there that employee needed that, because the equipment wasn't providing the right efficiency or effectiveness that were needed, because many other things that if you go deeper comes back to the, for example, lack of management oversight, comes back to resource management, come back to the wrong design, and other things that is a systematic issue. So that one was one of the issues. The second one, I think we may want to talk about that in a different question, and that is what I call shallow hazard analysis. Not understanding what exactly the risks are and focusing on certain spots and then discount the major risks that are coming from, where the major risks are coming from. And then we also need to talk about technology, data, and getting insight. But a combination of those, I think it has reached us to a point where we are a victim, essentially, of repeat failures, and we cannot really eliminate those.
Right. Well, again, Noreen makes a good point here that I think overlays with this as well, is we tend to look at things reactively in our industry. And the recall that's going on right now with By Heart and the botulism recall in the infant formula, the information is now starting to come out. And recalls tend to, Shahram, follow these same basic patterns of, we have an isolated incident, right? Which then expands to a larger recall, which then expands to everything. And we're finding out now, FDA had some very damning reports for these facilities under this company, and a lot of information from a couple of years ago that there were known issues in this facility. And to your point, nothing was done. And I think to your point, why aren't we figuring these things out? I would imagine this is a hot button for me. I bet it is for you too. If I have an issue in my company and I want to do an investigation and I charge the facility to look at this issue and get back to me, if I see the response back a couple of days later, number one, I know they didn't do any work. Mm-hmm. And then the response comes back, we retrain the operator, right? Fail, absolute 100% fail. You did nothing to prevent that. It's going to happen again. Dig deeper. And so I'll push back on that. And I think part of it too overlays with what you're saying too is time. If you are a quality manager in the facility and you're constantly running around fighting fires, trying to keep the plant operating, you think that's your role, but it's really not. Your role is to figure out why those things are happening in the first place, so you don't have to run around like an idiot all day long. And a lot of people have a hard time getting out of that because you feel like you're doing something, but you're really not. And I think another key piece of this, I'll be curious to get your personal take on this as well, is there's a political element to this as well too, is people don't want to look bad. They want to please their boss. And if a major event happens, then the lawyers step in and they want to protect the company. And a lot of times things aren't communicated that need to be communicated. And this is to Noreen's comment, is a lot of times this information, Shahram, needs to get out. And we need to understand if a major food safety event happens, we need to understand why, so that then we can look at our operations and, to your point, our systems, and figure out if that is being replicated in what we're doing and if we can stop that. And there's really no independent oversight of that, is there?
Right. And I saw the question that came around the independent investigation. I think that we need to come back to the basics and we need to come back to the integrity. I mean, integrity is really the first essence of any business. And when it comes to failures, such as the failures that we are talking about, it's it ultimately it comes back to that company, and it comes back to the leadership of that company. That do we have integrity in our investigation? Do we really want to remove this issue and never deal with that again, or do we just want to do something, at the surface and then never get to the and continue with our operations? And that's really the key determining factor between the businesses, in my view, that will last versus the businesses that ultimately go away. But there is nothing, in my view, that is called isolated issue. The concept of isolated issue is distorted, in my view, because if you have a system view, you cannot say that was isolated. Your system failed, and your system failed somewhere. And you have to go back and you have to think about redesigning your system. And that cannot be isolated. If it happens there, it's very likely that it happens somewhere else if it was a systematic issue. And most likely it is a systematic issue. So, so again, comes back to having the integrity, comes back to doing a methodical approach when it comes to investigations. And let's be honest, when we talk about regulatory bodies can't be everywhere, right? They have limited resources. Even if we have, an independent entity to go after the investigations, which may be a good idea in some cases to get, some sort of, methodical approaches around the investigation, lesson learned and all of that, but they can't go everywhere. I mean, it comes back ultimately to the culture. It comes back ultimately to raising the standards, and comes back to the education. And altogether, it requires a collaboration between industry, between regulatory bodies, between academia, so that we can all help each other together.
Right. No, very well said. And I think we're getting amazing comments here as well. I'm trying to scan through these well, guys. Keep them coming. I'm trying to work in as many as I can here. So part of this too is I think in a lot of ways, Shahram, we tend to view, and I think this is part of time and resource allocation. We tend to look at risk as a static element. Risk is constantly changing in an organization, and I think within your food safety plan and your hazard analysis in particular, we see this a lot. In that we will do an exercise, and a lot of times it's a paper exercise at the plant. Not at corporate, which is a separate thing. We'll talk about that more. But we will look at the risk of the ingredient as a inherent variable of that particular ingredient. And we think that's a static thing. Oh, we have this ingredient, we'll say pasta. And that ingredient has this risk and severity and likelihood. And here's the pathogens, and here's the potential chemical and physical threats. Fantastic. And then it never changes. But in reality, if you are looking at your plan, there's a reason why supplier management and control is a preventive control, because it's so incredibly critical to your operation.
Right.
And you have, in most cases, hundreds of suppliers. If you're a decent sized company, hundreds of suppliers within your organization. All of those different suppliers are, in a lot of cases, the real source of risk that is linked to that ingredient. If corporate decides to change pasta suppliers, and this is a brand new company that you don't know anything about, and your previous supplier has been supplying your facilities for 15 years and has done a good job, your risk has changed. But in that HACCP plan, it probably hasn't, has it? I see that as a big gap. What do you think?
It is a gap, for sure. I agree with you. I do want to spend some time, if that's okay, and talk about the hazard analysis, because that was, you referred to the article, and we also talked about quality manager and the work of a quality manager, and I think we have to spend a little bit of time here and talk about the way that we do hazard analysis in food industry, because and what I'm going to say again, it may be a little bit different, but bear with me, hear me out. I think we need to challenge the status quo. The system that we are working, HACCP, which is essentially a global system, even though we have preventive control, but HACCP has been in place since 1960. It's been in place for 50, 60 years, right, or more, and pretty much it hasn't changed.
Mhm.
So a lot of things have changed since then. And while the concept of HACCP, in my view, is still very valuable, I don't think the approach is delivering the insights that we need. So I have two critiques into the system of the hazard analysis in food industry. One is extremely fragmented, meaning that it's completely separated. So you have food safety plan, which essentially it's a HACCP, and then you have TACCP, which is the threat analysis, which essentially you're doing pretty much many steps of HACCP. You still have your type of product description, you still have your process flow map, and then you still go based on your process flow, and then you still identify, threats. Then you have VASP, vulnerability assessment, which comes through the food fraud from the lens of the food fraud. And at the end of that, at the end of this system, when you go to the facilities have a HACCP plan, have a TACCP plan, have a VASP plan, and then you know how much work it is to create these plans, and the result of that becomes a paperwork exercise versus a true dynamic risk, assessment and hazard analysis tool. And ultimately, what are you trying to do? You're trying to protect the consumer. So why do you need to have three different systems? Why not merging all of that and harmonize the risk and hazard analysis? That's the first issue. The second issue is if you look at the concept of HACCP, essentially, you are amplifying the importance of one or few points, which we call critical points, and or CCPs, and then you're discounting the rest. Yes, we are saying GMPs are important. We are saying sanitations are important. We are saying other things are important. But what it comes down is when you go to the facilities, you see that everyone is referring to the metal detector and saying that this is my CCP. And then nobody is thinking about other important things that comes into your process, sanitation, that may be the cause of many of the issues and recalls that exist in the food industry now. Design, raw material controls, maintenance controls, and many other, what we call prerequisite programs. So essentially what HACCP does, it discounts prerequisite program in favor of critical control program, which I fundamentally think that's something we should really think. And I don't know if that can be a future of our hazard analysis. If you look at other industries, they have what I call a total control. You identify a point that is a control. And if it's important for you to have the control, then you're going to have the management component associated with that. It doesn't have to come down to critical controls. In my view, it's becoming superficial. It's becoming more of, check boxes that, yes, I have identified my CCP, but your risk really doesn't always come from just the CCP. So I do think that we need to come together and have a conversation about that. Preventive control in the United States tried to resolve this issue, but it still is not well understood. Right. And still is not implemented in the way that it should be. And there are misinterpretation of that. I do think that these two issues are getting a lot of time of our people that are working, quality managers, people that work on quality systems, and also it's not delivering the value that it should be. It's not about removing the discipline from HACCP, but it's understanding what it gives you. What it gives you is not enough right now. We need to go beyond that. So those two, I think, are the things that need to change. Talking about change in the food industry, eradicating, the causes, reducing the number of recalls and all of that. We talked about design. We talk about design element. We talk about system thinking. And a component of that is taking a look at our hazard analysis and risk management tools. They are not delivering what it needs to deliver. They are not driving the right behavior. And then There's another aspect we should talk about that hopefully in the next 20 minutes, and that culture. Neither of these risk assessment tools talk about psychosocial factors. When you think about FASO, it doesn't talk about training. Training is at another layer, but then if you think about that, many of the failures comes from psychosocial factors. So how do we combine all of that into one harmonized food safety hazard analysis system so that it delivers, first of all, it removes repetitions, it removes redundancies, and it creates value, a true value that is not superficial. It doesn't overrate something versus the other thing, and it controls the right places.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like Brett's talking about here. I mean, our goal is not to get a high audit score. Our goal is to have safe food. And to your point, if you're in that facility, Shahram, and you're the quality manager, and you have your CCP for metal detection, because that's part of your food safety plan, and that's how you control foreign material. But you have a high rate of complaints for rubber particles in your product because gaskets aren't being changed out correctly by the maintenance team. But your metal detector is working great, right? Yep. You're not hitting your objective. You're doing things on paper that look good, but they're not improving. And that's why we keep asking the same question year after year: is why aren't recalls going down? And I think you're articulating that really, really well. We need to look at not only the systems. The systems exist to facilitate what the people need to do. Mm-hmm. And your entire system can be circumvented if you have groups within your plant. And again, this needs to be looked at outside of just what we do. This is a system for the company. This is not a system this is how the company needs to operate it. And it's what we're trying to get to with food safety culture. But if the operations team thinks that their objective in the plant is to produce 10,000 cases a day, and that's all it is, and the operators have been trained that, you're going to fail, because it needs to be 10,000 cases a day that are of the specifications and the safety that are required. It doesn't do us any good as a company to produce 10,000 cases of downgrade. It's silly.
That's where the attention is going to go. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we've all seen that. And that's that. We were talking, earlier about, indicators of, things that aren't working, like, training on corrective actions. That's one of the things in plants as well, or within company cultures, is that focus on the score, for example, for the audit. It's like, all right, well, what do we get? What did our plant get for the score? Well, they got a 98. Okay, that means everything's good. Does it? No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and realize that throughout the last 10, 15 years, the average number of audits that facilities go through have increased. I don't have the number, but it's safe to say that even if you compare 2024, 2025 to 2024, most facilities went through more of the audits.
Yes.
And certification have increased. The facilities companies are getting certified on more items that they were before. That drives more, inspections and, audits. Yet, at the same time, we are having the repeat failure. So something is off. And it comes back to the conversations that we had. And certainly the audit schemes that we have, whether, if it's GFSI scheme or any other scheme, they don't necessarily go deep in order to identify the issues. And because when you look at some of these, issues, you come back to the, audits, you see that many of them have passed the audit, sometimes with highest score. And, there's an argument over there that, audit just saw a few days and it's just sampling, and all of that is true. But I think that should be a good sample when we talk about audit concept and sampling. It should ask the right questions, essentially.
Right.
And sometimes that also is not asking the right question. So with that, I think we certainly need to take a step back and challenge the way that we do. And some of the components of that we did discuss. And I think we still need to discuss two further elements. And one is data analytics, digital transformation. And second, and finally, probably the most important one is culture. right? We need to talk about that as well. So I'll pass it to you. Which one you want to start, and then
I definitely want to get to the culture topic, because that really encompasses everything that we're talking about here today. And I think in a lot of ways, that concept of food safety culture is still very abstract. People are asking, what does that mean? And I think we're talking about that today. Is we're overlaying different elements, and so I'm curious to get your integration of this, Shahram. Which is, we're looking at the systems that we develop, we're looking at the people, we're looking at the products we're manufacturing, the consumers that we're selling to, and the overall design process. So how do all these things integrate into what we're calling food safety culture?
Sure. So, ultimately it comes down to the engagement. And when we talk about food safety culture, I think it comes down to having everyone at the company engaged and committed to the same, goal that we have. And once the engagement comes, then you basically have their support for what we want to achieve. So quality doesn't become a function; it really becomes the work of everyone. Yeah. And I think that's where it starts. We all heard that culture is something top down, but it's also bottom up. And it certainly starts with the commitment at the top level, and then it comes down to the engagement of the employees. I often say that the culture is something that you feel at Friday, 3 p.m. In your company. And you may start Monday with policies, but then you have to see how you end the week and how you feel at the end of the week. The way that you feel is a true indicator of basically what you dealt with throughout the week, and that's really the true culture. But it certainly starts with taking a look at the concept of the food safety and quality, having the right commitment around that, making sure that you have engagement and consistency in that engagement at different levels of the organization, and having a robust roadmap around that, which includes elements like education, includes elements like reward and recognition, includes elements such as consistency in delivering the message, communication. How do we communicate? It comes back to setting the expectation. What are the expectations? Everyone are understanding the expectations. Coming back to the conversation we had, employee did not follow the procedure. That's symptom thinking. I think the better question to ask is, did employee understand why they needed to follow this procedure? If you ask that question, because culture is about why, and then the system is about how and drives how. But the culture is really coming around why. That's one. The other aspect of the culture that I want to talk about is essentially taking a look at quality as a business enabler. Because a lot of times quality function of the quality is seen as a cost absorber, as a cost center. And I think this is a fundamental question, the fundamental challenge that we as quality professionals need to work on. Because a lot of times we talk on the technical language with our leaders. And an issue from a technical language, a salmonella issue, a listeria issue, a foreign contaminant issue, may not have any meaning much to the leadership. What is really important to them is, are we sending the right product to the customer at the right time? And then does that bring value to the organization? Because ultimately, the goal of the organization is to essentially earn money. So how that quality is helping that mission, protecting the customer and consumers, and how do we not passing any risk to the consumer so that they basically come back and halt the business. And we have to change our language to talk differently because the technical language doesn't work. The story needs to be retold. And we have to think really about how do we tell our story again in a way that is tangible and to bring that commitment. So
Absolutely.
that's an aspect that I think is critical. It's probably lost somehow, or we have to focus on that again.
Right. No, very, very well said. We need to speak their language. If you want to put a CEO to sleep, start talking about food safety statistics, guaranteed. You need to speak their language. I had a guest on a few episodes ago, Shahram, Elizabeth Fernandez, who was the VP of Quality at McCain, excellent person. And she cited a study where it was estimated that around 30% of the profitability within a company is tied to quality. That's what people buy. And they were finding that information out by companies that went through significant events. And then they figured out, using that data going backwards, that lost revenue was linked to the public perception of quality within that field. There was another really good saying I heard recently too that I actually put on my LinkedIn page because I liked it so much, was marketing exists within a company to bring in customers. Quality exists within a company to keep them.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Nobody asks. Yeah, just one other kind of another point there popped in my head. It's this uphill battle that we have in this space of quality as a cost center, which drives all of us nuts. Well, so is accounting, and so is finance. Right? Nobody says, why do we have a finance department? That's crazy. They cost. No, we are an active part, and we are part of the company. I think that's part of our issue as well. Is we are not the quality. Everybody is the quality department within the company. Part of our job is to help them understand that. And I think, Shahram, through this conversation here today, I'm really happy to have you on, is helping the rest of the organization see that and showing that. If R&D in that design control process understands up front that if they're going to introduce a new allergen into one of the facilities because of a new product that they want to launch, that is a major issue. Okay? So if the R&D guy understands at the benchtop level the complexity his change will make to the organization, that discussion needs to be had at that point in the conversation. Absolutely. And if the organization decides, oh my goodness, if we introduce a brand new allergen to our facility, that means new cleaning schedules, that means new production cycles, that means new product labeling, on and on and on. That's going to cost us $10 million to redo all of that in lost yields and efficiencies. Let's not do that. And that then becomes the process. And that's how things become efficient, because you're able to identify issues early on versus in the plant where the quality manager raises his hand and says, excuse me, this new allergen you've introduced into my plant is a major problem. And then everybody goes, oh, those quality people, all they do is say no. No, you designed in the failure to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it all comes back to the point that you mentioned that, sales, marketing, our colleagues in product development, they bring the customer. The job of quality and food safety is to protect the customer and keep them for the company. The customer comes back because they feel value, and because they feel safe, they trust the brand, and that all comes down to the quality and the culture that we talked.
Yes, I know, and Tracy Fink had mentioned this earlier as well in the comments, and she's 100% right. If I'm going to the grocery store and I want to buy spices for the holiday season for preparing, let's say, some mulled wine or some wonderful holiday treat, I'm going to go with who I trust. I'm not going to buy things I'm not necessarily familiar with. I trust McCormick. I will buy things that I trust, and that's irreplaceable for a company. That's part of what you build over that century plus of manufacturing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Bryan, there was one more topic that I wanted to touch. I know we only have a few minutes left, but it is the conversation around data transformation and digitalization. If you think about that, we are at the era where typically it's called Industry 4.0, and then the element of that is Quality 4.0. I'll share with you for the first time here that I'm working on an article that what does food safety 4.0 mean, and you will soon see that article coming. But I think we should as we talk about transformation, as we talk about future, as we talk about what do we need to do differently, not to come back with the repeat failures, we have to look at the environment that we are dealing with. So, we are at the era where, the digital solutions, data is really something that everyone is talking about. You see the transformation in the industries and you see the transformation in the businesses. Even at the consumer level, you see that people now have their cell phone with them. They go to the grocery store, they start scanning, they are much more informed and they have powerful tools in their hands in order to track the product from the traceability standpoint, understand the nutritional fact of the food that they are buying, and many things like that. Now, let's step back, take a look at our manufacturing process. How much our manufacturing process, how much our lab governing process, how much of quality system process has changed since 20 years ago, since 30 years ago. And I think that's the answer to that defines where we are today and where we should be. I think that we still have a lot of work to do in order to gather a lot of data.
Yeah.
And these data needs to be in a digital format so that you can then analyze that. And when we gather the data, we need to basically have insights around those and act upon it, because that's going to be the future. The future is connected system. The future is a smart. So we have to see the real-time data. We have to look at the metrics that gives us the indication that a failure is going to happen, not when the failure already happened.
Yes.
So that comes about proactivity that we are talking about. And with the current tool, with the manual interventions that we have today, that cannot happen. We need to bring IoTs. We need to bring digitalization. We need to bring transformation and automation as a tool to help the employees that are working, not to replace them necessarily. It's really around helping them, making them smarter, making a smarter decision. And that is something that food industry and providers in the food industry heavily need to work on. We do not currently have a lot of tools. We're cleaning our facilities the same way that we have been cleaning in the last 30 years, 40 years. We don't have a lot of good tools when it comes to data gathering. And the journey has started, but we need to embark on that. And in my view, the companies need to be more brave in order to adopt those tools, because there's no perfect solution. We need to basically adopt and improve. So I did not want to finish without talking about the importance of data transformation and digitalization in the era that we are. And if you think about a change, that should be a component of that.
Oh no, 100%. I'm very happy that we were able to end on that as well with that, because a couple of points from my perspective is what you're saying there is what I'm saying too. Is in the food industry, we're very good at gathering data. We have tons and tons and tons of data. We have no really good ways to interpret it and turn it into information that's valuable to the company. The other side of that is 100%, and this is something that I preach a lot too, Shahram, is in the quality function, looking backwards is not very valuable. Right? If we spend our time creating quality reports that tell the company what happened last month, how does it help us move forward? Exactly. We need to move to prediction. That's where we become valuable. Look what other departments in the company do. Marketing goes out and predicts trends and new products and things that the company should be looking at. Sales goes out and projects where the best sales are happening and what products have the highest velocity and where advertising money should be spent or promotions. They actively predict what the future of the company is. We need to do that too. We need to be looking at it and saying, here's what we need to be looking at from a quality perspective. Here's what consumers are most interested in for the product quality. From a food safety perspective, here's the things that we need to be emphasizing and focusing on to prevent these things from happening. And I agree with you 100%. That's our challenge moving forward.
Absolutely.
So as promised, guys, I'm gonna put Shahram's excellent article into the chat here. There's the link to that in Food Safety Tech. And I can't wait to read your new article. That's going to be amazing. And One of the best things, Shahram, that I love about the chat is being able to bring on important people in the food industry who have these perspectives and moving forward and allowing people to see that. So thank you very much for coming on the chat.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here to talk to you and the viewers here, and it was a great discussion. I really enjoyed that, Bryan.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can tell here with our comments, guys, thank you. I mean, the comments are scrolling by so fast, I was having trouble keeping up. Amazing conversation. This is why we do this is for you, everyone that's attending this. And we recognize that an hour out of your busy week is a significant investment, but that's what it is. It's an investment. And in order for us to grow and learn and improve, as Shahram is talking about here today, we need to look past what we're doing in any particular moment and think about the future and how can we make things better, because that's why we're here. We want to make things better. And I think that's the legacy that we all want in what we do. So with that, everybody, thank you again for attending. I appreciate it greatly. Of course, we will be back here next Friday at the same time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, on the Culture Advisory Group Food Safety Chat, where I will bring another cutting edge individual like Shahram onto the chat to have a conversation with you. So enjoy your weekend. Have a great one. Don't spend too much time shopping. Don't stress yourself out. You got enough stress during the week. So sit back, have a little bit of coffee, enjoy this nice weather. It's beautiful here in Colorado. And we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you then.
Thank you, everyone.